Hey everybody. People always ask me, Manny, what tools should I be using for my Amazon business? Well, this episode is brought to you by helium10.com. These are the same tools I use to generate 6 figures per month with Amazon FBA. I get keyword research, product tracking, listing optimization, search term tracking, account monitoring, and a lot of other brand new money pulling tools that are going to be released to Helium 10 members on a regular basis. If you're going to grab any tools, check these out. Seriously, get a massive advantage with the tools that top sellers are using right now. Okay, and they're all in one place. Some tools and services will have a user cap, so get in there as quickly as you can. That's helium10.com, helium10.com.
Warning, the following podcast has been classified as insanely lucrative. Listener discretion is advised.
And you know it's a counterfeit, and you know that there's the reviews that are going to come in off of those by the time you stop it are going to affect your listing.
Your attention, please. Listening to the AM/PM podcast may cause recurring revenue streams and unfair advantages over your competitors. Other side effects may include fatter wallets, fired bosses, and longer vacations. Listen at your own risk. Here's your host, 7-figure entrepreneur and online marketing madman, Manny Coates. Manny Coates.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AM/PM podcast. My name is Manny Coates, and I will be your host, and this is the show where we discuss how to generate recurring revenue streams 24 hours per day during the AM and the PM, hence the name of the show. As a matter of fact, I was just booking tickets to Spain, a trip I'm going to be taking next month, and while booking those tickets, I was making money. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. So today I did an interview with private label lawyer Suzi Hixon, and we talked about all kinds of awesome things. We talked about brand registry, how to protect your brand, how to set up your brand, how to stop and remove hijackers, trademarks, awesome resources to check brand usage online, GS1 UPCs versus normal UPCs, and a ton of other things. So guys, this episode runs long, okay? It's about an hour and a half, but it's full of nuggets. So without further ado, let's jump into that interview. It is an honor and a privilege to introduce Suzi Hixon. She is one of our FBA High Roller members. She's also an intellectual property law attorney, and she's been doing this for, 13 years, Suzi?
13 years, Manny. Like I said, time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on here and giving me an opportunity to speak with your listeners, maybe answer some questions that you have about intellectual property and how it applies to Amazon and how you can use it to your advantage on Amazon. But yeah, I started practicing law in 2003. Yeah, let's go back even further, 2003. And I started out doing patent law. I did that for about a year and a half, and honestly, I kind of found it a little boring and monotonous, and so fortunately I quickly evolved into doing trademark work, which was a really good fit for me. I got to work with a lot of creatives. I worked for a medium-sized law firm and worked for mainly medium-sized businesses for most of the time that I was at that firm, and then I had a couple of larger clients that I basically managed their trademark portfolios. And in 2010, I moved to California and into San Francisco and worked with a couple startups out there, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a ton, and I lost a lot of money, so that was not the fun part of it, but, I guess you live and learn. But I realized that there was still a huge need for trademark work out there, and so I decided to start my own law practice offering sort of reduced rates for people who are sort of in the startup world, who are small businesses and entrepreneurs. And last year, I had a client who was doing private label on Amazon, and I didn't really know exactly what it was he was doing, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. So I started doing some of my own private labeling, and it was such a great learning experience. And I met some really cool people. I kind of encountered a lot of the same obstacles that private label sellers have. And it was just a really great learning experience. And just by, kind of hanging around on some of the Facebook groups, I realized that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about intellectual property and trademarks. And, I just saw so much kind of just bad information being passed around. And so this past year, I slightly pivoted my law practice and kind of branded myself as the private label lawyer. I still have my kind of a regular, IP law practice, but I just recently started kind of this private label lawyer brand to, make myself available to people who are going down the Amazon path and might run into problems with counterfeit or just want to basically know how to protect their brands on the Amazon platform and just e-commerce in general.
Okay, wow. So I can imagine with your law degree and with your knowledge, I can imagine myself having that and just what I could do, the damage I could do to the people that mess with me online. It would just be...
The damage. You would bring the thunder.
It would be crazy. So I'm curious, though. So now you're doing FBA, private label. Did you do that mainly to kind of boost up your knowledge on that industry so it would help your private label lawyer business? Or has that now shifted where you're really kind of doing both?
Well, yeah, I didn't even really think about, being the private label lawyer until after I started doing private labeling. And the reason I was doing private labeling was because, like I said, I had a client that was doing it and I didn't quite understand what he was doing. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to kind of dig in here and figure this out and go through all of this myself as well so I can hopefully help him more. And it was just a great learning experience for me, kind of about how the platform works, how the back end works on Amazon. I mean, I was addicted to podcasts last year. I was so just into the whole, everything about like importing and getting to brand your own products and putting it on the Amazon platform. That was just such a cool thing for me to do. And like I said, I just, it's just been this last probably 5 to 6 months where I'm like, oh my gosh, I could actually really help people who are also private label sellers who just really aren't appreciating the importance of intellectual property. So I've kind of, melded my experience with intellectual property and my more limited experience with private labeling.
Okay, got it. And if you don't mind me asking, I'm curious because you and I haven't actually talked very much before this, but how is your private label business doing? And do you mind mentioning like how many SKUs or products you have going?
Sure, that's fine. I just have 2 SKUs. They're both cell phone accessories. The first one that I imported did really well. The second product I imported, I'll just go into what that was. It was cell phone batteries, like portable batteries. And that really was much more of a flop. I still have some in the warehouse. So, I'm like thinking, do I need to pull those in August? I don't know. But yeah, so my first one did great. My second one, I thought, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like I know the ropes now. And, even though I thought I knew more, the product was not as successful as the first one. So, I'll tell anyone who's going down this road, like just because you mess up on your first one, doesn't mean you're going to do bad on your second one or vice versa. You should just, just get out there and do it. It's really the best way to learn and just listen to podcasts like you guys have. I mean, just absorb the information, take notes.
Yeah. I think if people have been following me, they know that my very first product as well was a flop. I was all gung-ho, thought it was going to work great, got in, and it ultimately failed. It wasn't a horrible flop, but it just wasn't a moneymaker. And,
sure.
I was wondering, I'm like, what do I do with all these extra units? I'm kind of like you. And I started using those, I use that actual SKU in that product line as a test bed. So anytime we were running some tools or doing something, I'm like, you know what, I got to do some kind of some bad stuff to the back end. Things I don't want to do to my live, really cool products. I'm like, stick them on this one, and if it gets killed, it's not a big deal. So it became like the little science lab. And
that's actually really smart.
Yeah, it worked well, and I actually sold out finally. In fact, just recently, I kept raising the price on it because I didn't want them to sell out, and they just kept selling like one a day here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So are you going to continue the FBA side of things and building your brands, or are you at this point going to be focused on just one thing?
Honestly, since I kind of pivoted to, the private label law, I have been so slammed with work. And a lot of this is because of the counterfeit issues that we're having right now with Amazon. So I haven't had the time that I've wanted to just really sit down and work, with PPC and doing the sourcing, because when I got my first two products, I did so much research. I researched and ordered samples and worked with Chinese sellers. And, I spent a lot of time doing that. And right now, honestly, I don't really have the time to do it. So, and what little limited free time I have, I'm very much trying to be good about spending time with my family. So.
Yeah, I get that. I'm the person that can totally understand taking on too many projects and can kind of lose focus of all of them if you don't really focus on, just one or two specific things. So since you're talking about the private label business and intellectual law and trademarks and all that, let's get into that. For those that are new and probably don't know a lot about that, where would you start? I mean, if you have a client coming in and you need to advise them, they're saying, hey, I've got a product, I'm about to launch it, what should I do? What's the advice? Where do you start with all of this?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to know is, are they going to want to import this and then just sell it as a generic product, or they actually want to do true private labeling where they import and actually brand it as their own? And, 99% of the time that's what clients want to do, but I always just want to make sure that's, that we're on the same page. And with respect to branding, there's a lot of creative elements that go into that. And even though I appreciate creativity, I am probably not the most creative person in the entire world. So, I don't really work with a lot of the actual development of the brand. I suggest that they, work with a branding agency to do that, or do it on their own, or have their family help them, or have their cousin Bob, who is in branding, help them if they need, they need to do that. So, after they come to me, though, with a few, possible brands or trademarks that they're wanting to use for their private label business, one of the first things that I want to make sure that they're doing is they're choosing a strong brand. And when I say a strong brand, what I mean is, it can't be overly descriptive of what those products are that you're selling. So if you're selling, kitchenware on Amazon, you can't brand it as, super cool kitchenware, because that's just way too descriptive. You need a mark that is a little more suggestive of what your products are. And then I also encourage my clients to do some of their own clearance searching. To make sure that there's no one else using that mark. Now, you might come across other people or other companies using a similar mark, and that still might not be an impediment to your use of the mark, but it's still a good idea to do that clearance search. Just an example of some marks that coexist that are the same are Delta Airlines and Delta Faucets. And I think there's a lot of other Deltas out there. So, just because you come across a mark that's identical to yours, you're not completely, left without a mark. You might want to take it to your trademark attorney at that point to, kind of give you an opinion on whether or not that mark could be confusingly similar to yours. I have several suggested resources that clients can use to do that searching on their own. And if they want to, there's also more robust, comprehensive searching that I typically recommend if someone is rolling out a new brand. And that robust, comprehensive search is basically software-based and searches different variations and iterations of words and names. And it also searches the USPTO database, common law resources, Dun & Bradstreet, state trademark filings, and things like that. So it's a lot more extensive search. Right. It's pricey, but it will help you sleep a little better at night, maybe.
Right, yeah. And on our Facebook group, a little while back, actually, and that's how I actually came to know of you. You had posted a couple really cool links where people they were free. You could start off and just check the whole social media area, right, and see if that particular brand name or the name that you're thinking about using is available on all the social media platforms, right, Or is that right?
Yeah. I can give those out now, or if you want me to just, kind of point people to a resource at some point, like, towards the end of our talk, I'd be happy to. But yeah, there are a couple of free resources out there that are really good for that, that cursory knockout search that clients should do.
Yeah, what are they? I mean, we'll put them in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Okay, so one of them is called, it's Knowem, and that's KNOWEM as in mom.com. Knowem.com.
Okay.
And the other one is Name, Name, and then check, but it's spelled CHK.com.
Awesome.
Those are really good resources, I think. I use them quite a bit just to do knockout searches. And one thing I really like about them is I love the way that they reveal social media platform or, handles and usernames, because those are really good indicators of actual use of a mark out there. So if you happen to, have a mark that you're interested in and you see that there's a Twitter handle that's the exact same mark, you might want to go to that Twitter profile and just kind of do a little more research and investigation just to see what it is exactly they're doing. So
yeah, that's a great point there. It could save you a lot of money in the actual deep searches when you're doing trademark searches, right? And you might find that particular phrase that you thought was so awesome and so unique is actually in use on 20 different sites.
Yeah. Yeah, and that actually happens a lot is, people will come up with something that's like, this has got to be the most unique thing ever. And, and you do the searching and several results come up. And it's like, and then, like I said earlier, just because you do come up with something that's exact, don't, it could be for different. It could be for different goods or services. We have a host of arguments trademark attorneys do in, trying to overcome likelihood of confusion refusals. So, there's a lot of different factors that kind of go into that whole analysis about whether or not two marks are too close. But the main things you want to think about are what, the overall appearance of your mark compared to the other mark and what your goods are compared to how the other mark is being used.
Got it. Now, I'm going to jump around because I know we want to talk about brand registry
Yes.
as well. But if somebody's if they do this search on one of the two sites you mentioned and they find that the domain is actually taken, but overall it's still a good brand name.
Mm-hmm.
Would you, for brand registry, if the name isn't exact, does that matter too much? I mean, what's your experience there?
I think having a domain name that's consistent with your brand is great from a overall branding perspective. And I feel like, that's the same across the board when it comes for social media handles. It's great if your Twitter and your Pinterest and Instagram and, your domain name can all be the same. But in terms of brand registry, getting a trademark, that kind of thing, your domain name is merely an online address, and that's it.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So person does a search, they find something they think is good. What's the next step?
I typically recommend trademark filing. And people always ask me, well, how do I know when I should file a trademark application for my brand? And, I typically say as soon as it's economically feasible. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure or whatever that saying is. Yeah, it really is. You will end up kicking yourself if you don't go ahead and file as soon as you can. And like I said, as soon as it's economically feasible. And the USPTO filing fee is $275 per mark per class. So, that could be a decent amount of money for a company that's just getting started and they're really like trying to, watch their pennies. But it's still an important investment, I think, in your overall brand. I suggest to people, ask yourself, like, do you consider your brand as an asset to your business? Just like your, the laptop that you have that you spent probably $3,000 to $5,000 on. If you consider it, integral to your business, like you need to err on the side of filing sooner rather than later.
Right.
Now, go ahead.
I was going to say, what do you do, though, if you're a new seller and you don't have your product actually launched yet, so you don't know if it's going to be a success or not? Is it worth spending the extra money on the trademark before doing so? Because in your example earlier, you said you launched two products, for example, and I launched my first product and they failed. So the trademark and those cases wouldn't have really mattered too much. Would you do you still recommend doing that in advance, or do you kind of preach, give it a try, and as soon as you know it's something that's working, then jump on it immediately?
See, I think it's better to file just really as soon as you can. And I know that people probably think I'm biased because I'm a trademark lawyer, but I think I'm coming also from the perspective that I've seen the other end of it so much, where it becomes so much more complex when you wait 6 months, or and someone else files before you do, and that can become such a pain. Or, someone jumps on your listing, a counterfeiter jumps on your listing. It's so much more difficult to enforce a brand if you don't have a registration. And at the end of the day, it's going to take you at the very least 6 to 8 months to get your mark registered after you file it. And that's assuming that you don't run into any obstacles during the application process. People are spending money on a product, and they are taking some risk there. And that's just what happens when you're in this business. There is always an element of risk. And the same thing goes for filing the trademark application, but your risk of loss might be $275, if you use an attorney, probably more than that. But at the same time, I encourage anyone who's looking at branding is, really think about like what your private label product is, and think about realistically how will you expand around that product. So let's say that you start importing bamboo forks. This is random. It just came to my head. Let's say you start importing bamboo forks, okay, and you want to choose a brand for it. Well, your bamboo forks might end up failing, but, you could also import bamboo tongs and bamboo, other kitchenware. So when you file that trademark application at the very beginning, when you recite your goods within that application, you would want to list out all of the goods that you could potentially foresee you using the mark on. So it'd be forks, bamboo forks, knives, tongs, things like that. So you wouldn't be filing for just like one specific thing for that mark. And another thing is and this is kind of a tip if anyone's doing this on their own, when they file, try to be as broad as you can be in that goods description. The USPTO isn't going to let you get away with just saying kitchenwares, but you can try to be fairly broad if possible. And, that way you can kind of expand your goods as you see fit.
Yeah.
And I see that question a lot too, is what, do I need to choose a new brand for this thing? And, a lot of, it just depends. Is it a similar product? Are you going for the same kind of market space? So there's different considerations.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's really smart. So take a little bit of time when you're planning out your product, or even if you've ordered your product, but think about the future related products you're going to be doing. And that's really smart because you can build off of that brand. So if you have, like you said, if you're selling the forks and you're going to be selling spoons and knives and plates and whatever it is, you can expand that out. And if one does fail or doesn't work out, at least the brand's in place for you to bring in a bunch of other stuff and keep trying.
Yeah, your brand's in place, and that's what is important because you will have products that fail. When you really start, kind of rolling out different items, they're not all going to be home runs. So you kind of have to factor for that.
Yeah, and then you had mentioned, for just just under $300, you can get the trademark going. Is that if somebody does it themselves, and I don't even know, is this a service that you also offer, or would you recommend they go to a specific place to do these things?
Yeah, this is something I do. I do a lot of trademark filings. I think I filed 4 today. So the USPTO fee is $275. Now, I offer a flat rate on the initial filing, and you'll find a lot of attorneys that will do that. If you do, go to an attorney and they want to charge you an hourly rate, just keep in mind that is going to end up costing you more.
Yeah.
I can do a flat rate at the beginning because I know how long it takes me to do an initial filing and get everything ready. But I don't offer flat rate on responding to office actions, and if any kind of opposition issue comes up, that does have to revert to my hourly rate. So just keep that in mind, though. You'll find that attorney prices vary quite a bit, and a lot of it depends on experience and law firm size and geographic location and things like that.
Right. So outside of talking to a real person, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to trademark this product, what are some of the differences between, let's say, using your service and going to an online service like Trademark or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not totally familiar with Trademark yet, and LegalZoom, as I understand, I kind of feel like they'll file the paperwork for you, but they won't give you any legal advice in terms of, it's best to craft your goods or services a certain way. So they're not going to help you in that respect. I don't know what kind of docketing they do. If you go to a law firm, your trademark will be on a docket, and having a docket is very important because, obviously because, when a trademark is going through the application process, you might be issued office actions. And if you're issued an office action, there's going to be a deadline to respond to that. It's a very lenient or I guess generous deadline, but it still exists. And if you miss it, your application will go abandoned. So I don't think LegalZoom does that. Now, Trademark, you might docket. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But they will not also help with the office actions or, dealing with office action responses. At that point, I think you would have to hire their internal counsel.
Okay. And I know the listeners are curious, so I'm just going to ask straight out, what is your flat rate? What's the rate that you're offering?
$600.
Okay. So that's actually very similar then to some of the fees that I paid for Trademarks using the online services, because by the time you start adding in all these little ancillary fees here, there,
sure,
it starts adding up. So, okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we can do this for you for $200, but oh, wait, that doesn't include this and this and this. But my flat rate does include that initial filing fee of $275. So really it's $320. My rate would be $325 for that one filing.
Right, and that's a national search? Because I think that was one of the other things with the online service. They have like different levels of searches, and that's how they get you. It's like, oh, I want the full search to make sure I'm not in trouble.
Yeah, no, so that fee is just the trademark filing fee and would not include any kind of searching, like any kind of clearance searching. That would be kind of a totally different thing. Now, also, I do flat rate clearance searching for clients, and those are $1,200, and it kind of freaks people out, and I get that, but I have to pay an outsourced fee to the company that I use to actually do those clearance searches, and their fee runs between $500 and $600 depending on the scope of the search, and so that right there is like almost as much as just my flat rate. So most people, they'll do a lot of their clearance searching on their own, and they'll opt to go ahead and file a trademark application without doing the comprehensive searching.
Okay, and do you recommend that if we go back actually, and you said, well, it's better for somebody to do this up front and get a trademark. If they don't know if the product or even the brand is going to be good, they should still do a clearance search, right? Or would they skip that process?
I think at the very least, you do your own searching. At the very least, you can look on the two resources I gave you. You can look on the USPTO website. Just keep in mind that those kinds of searches do have limitations. It's very difficult for you to search 10 variations of your mark. And that's something that a comprehensive search through, like an outsourced search, like what I do, that's where that really comes in handy is, I feel like that software is a lot smarter than we are as individuals because the software knows how to go out and search all these different variations of a trademark and all these different platforms, common law, state trademark databases, like I said, the USPTO. Again, a comprehensive search is expensive. Like I said, my flat rate for them is $1,200, and that's probably about average for one of those. And it does become a difficult decision when a client's like, oh, well, should I just go ahead and risk it, and save my $1,200, or, should I be very thorough and, do the comprehensive search? Now, as an attorney, I really have to suggest in most instances, yeah, you should probably do that comprehensive search. But if I put my business hat on, I get the balance that a company has to make internally, when it comes to, just having to watch, your bottom line every single day. I mean, when you're starting a business, $1,200 is a lot of money to spend on something like this. So typically, I would say 10 to 15% of my clients will do a comprehensive search before they file. But to be honest, they're established companies that have a legal budget. Very few of my smaller business clients do the comprehensive searches. They just go ahead and file. So, there's no requirement to do any kind of comprehensive search. I just always like for people to know that exists, and it's typically strongly suggested. Now, if you've been using a brand for over 6 months to a year, I'm typically like, let's just file applications since you've already been using it.
Okay. All right. That's good. Now, a person files for their trademark, and while it's pending, they're now selling on Amazon, and they have to deal with potential hijackers or counterfeiters, whatever it is you want to call them.
Yeah.
And this is becoming a much bigger problem just about every single month. It's getting bigger and bigger. You're probably seeing a lot of this now?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And
do you want to – go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I get someone contact me like from, an Amazon seller probably every other day with a hijacker issue. Yeah, it's crazy. And I think a lot of this has to do with Amazon opening up to the Chinese or to Chinese sellers. And sometimes I feel like, Amazon is kind of bowing down to that portion. I don't know. I feel like sometimes they're making it more difficult on, U.S.-based sellers. And it's like, okay, they're the ones having to invest the time and money to go after these hijackers. And Amazon isn't making it very easy on us. So that's why, I try to tell people, make your listing, your ASIN, really branded towards you. Make it difficult to a potential hijacker. Like, really the name of the game is, make it hijacker proof. It's deterrence. Let them go to a easy target, not you.
Right. Yeah. And that part of that process is very seriously private labeling your product. Don't just find something that they're making at the factory and then slap a logo on it and be done with it. Because you're a prime target at that point. It's not good. So you want to mention for those listeners that might be just starting out and haven't actually heard the term hijacker, or maybe they've heard it but they don't know exactly what it is. You want to talk a little bit about what that is and then what you can do to actually protect yourself against that?
Sure. Yeah. So, when you have what's called like quote unquote hijacker issue, basically we use that as a very broad generalization, and we kind of say that's just someone who's selling on our listing. We go to our Amazon listing and we're like, oh no, we can click on this link here and we see that there's someone else who's selling, allegedly our product. Who is this person or business? Like, what is going on? So there's kind of different levels of hijackers. There's your someone who's just a confused seller, like a new seller who doesn't really know how to properly list. They don't understand that when they list something on your listing, it has to be the exact product. And I think that a lot of times we automatically say it's a hijacker when, it's probably just an innocent seller who's very confused. And it could be, I've had some situations recently where there's these very bizarre entities on the listing, and we're starting to think that they could be somehow scraping information off of the listing, or maybe trying to look like a bigger brand on or a bigger seller on the Amazon listing. And so when you go do the 999 trick, Manny, are you aware of the 999 trick to see how many? Yeah, okay. Yeah. I thought y'all probably talked, yeah. So, you'll go and do that and you'll see, oh, okay, there's like 200. It's almost like always 200. It's like some flat number. So you kind of wonder, like, what are they doing? So I typically do consider them an egregious hijacker because, they're not a legitimate seller of your product.
Right. And for those of you that don't know, we'll just mention it. The 999 trick that Susie's referring to just allows you to see how much inventory a particular company has in stock or a seller has in stock. So if someone has hijacked your listing, basically you add their product to your cart, and then on the checkout page, you'll just change the quantity to 999 and click update. And then typically they're not going to have 999 units. So Amazon will actually tell you, hey, this seller only has 8 units in stock. So you know exactly how many they have. So that's a 999 trick. You can use it to find out the inventory on anybody who hasn't blocked it. There's a way of blocking it, but also anybody who has less than 1,000 units in stock. And the other thing I wanted to mention for hijackers, guys, is that it's kind of scary because you, like Susie mentioned, you go to your listing, your page, right, and then suddenly you realize you're not the seller on there. Everything looks the same, but it's somebody else selling there, usually for a different price, a lower price than you're selling. And at times, even your listing will change. Some of the things will change, right, Susie?
Right. Or they'll grab the buy box, which is a horrible wake-up call for people when they realize they've lost the buy box on the listing that they created.
Yeah, your sales drop off. You're wondering why am I not getting any sales? And you realize that all the review building that you've done for this product, all this time you spent creating it, is actually driving sales for another seller, and they're on your listing. Everybody, and then the worst part is, since these guys probably aren't selling the same product you are, customers are thinking they're getting this product, and when they come back to review that product, if it's really terrible, you're going to have to. I mean, it's your listing that's getting slammed. And that's the word. I mean, that's horrible. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, because, someone is going to end up getting the unbranded product or, just not the one that they thought they were going to get, like you said. And, they're going to go give your listing 1 star. So I've actually been working with Amazon to try to get some 1 stars removed on behalf of my clients who we are certain are attributable to counterfeits. So it's possible to do that. You just got to really pay close attention to your listing. And that's something I tell people, you have to really stay vigilant. Like you can do your own, check your own ASINs just constantly to see if there's any other sellers on there. Of course, a lot of people see a noticeable dip in sales, from what they're typically used to. And then there's also a platform out there called Listing Eagle, I think, that will monitor for you and alert you if there's anyone else on your ASINs, which I'm not very familiar with that, but I actually just learned about it recently. So I definitely want to look into it a little bit more because I think that would help people a lot, especially a lot of clients that have a large number of listings that you just cannot possibly monitor all of them and check them constantly.
Yeah, there's times where I've never even known that I was hijacked. They're getting smarter. A lot of these guys that do this professionally, right? They go out. From what I've been told, there's even people or businesses, courses out there that teach people how to hijack and make a living actually hijacking products. And so it's getting crazy. But I didn't even know that I was being hijacked because one of the tactics is they jump on for a few hours at a time, and then they're off, and then you never see them unless you go to your reports. If you're in Seller Central, you can look at your reports, and you can see the buy box percentage, how often you've had it. And when it's not 100%, you know that somebody's been, claiming your buy box there.
Somebody's been on it. Now, I have heard someone make the suggestion of, after sending your initial letter to the alleged counterfeiter, to temporarily lower your price so you hopefully don't lose the buy box, and that way you're basically showing that counterfeiter that you're going to be aggressive. You're on them instantly, and you're not going to let them make any money from your listing. So I don't know. I have never, worked with a client who put that method into practice, but that might be something that someone would want to think about doing.
Yeah, I've actually done that. So it does work. Okay. So essentially while you're waiting, what happens is typically the buy box is going to go to the lowest priced seller as long as, their seller feedback is good and everything looks solid. So you can reduce your price below their price, and then you should get the buy box back. But in my scenario, it didn't really work because they just kept lowering their price. It just became and it got to a point where I was like, you know what? They're not even selling the same product. They're selling it for less, or they're selling a cheaper product so they can undercut me anyways. And it's being shipped from China most of the time. So should we talk about removing the hijackers or the steps to prevent hijackers from even hijacking you in the first place? Where do you want to go?
Let's talk about a few things that maybe you can do to your listing to prevent them in the first place. I feel like I've said before, I feel like this is really the meat of, of this whole thing, is just doing what you can to your listing, of course, within Amazon's terms of service, to make it clear that this is your branded listing. And one of the other big tips that I give to people, and this might seem really straightforward to a lot of people, but a lot of people just don't get this part, but use distinctive and branded packaging and take pictures of the branded packaging with your products and put them on your Amazon listing. I don't think they can be your first picture, but they can be somewhere, within that listing. I think it's really important to do that. Of course, put your trademark on your product if possible, and of course on your packaging. I've even told people, if you have a product that's conducive to molding, like if not like the fungus, but like to make mold, like molded products that you would have your Chinese manufacturer do for you. If you can actually get your trademark as part of the mold, that's a really good way to maybe not so much deter that counterfeiter from jumping on there, but it's going to be really easy to show that you've got a counterfeit product or you're dealing with a counterfeit issue because, it's obvious that the products are different. And basically the standard with respect to what is counterfeit is there a material difference in what you're offering versus what the alleged counterfeiter is offering. And courts have been very generous with what they consider a material difference, and even going so far as saying, well, if you're offering a warranty with this product and your Chinese hijacker is not, that could be considered a material difference and therefore counterfeit. And I've actually used that as an argument with Amazon, and I've been able to get, counterfeiters off. So really think about whenever you are getting to the point where you have to report to Amazon, make it really clear that you're dealing with a counterfeit. And, A, B, C, D, these are the differences in their product and my product. You just got to lay those out very, very, very straightforward with Amazon. So I kind of went over to the enforcement side, but
yeah, we're jumping around. Well, you know what? Because they're both very important, right? It's like once you get hijacked, how do you get them off? And then you're like, well, how do I stop them from doing it in the first place? And there's just so many different things you can do.
Yeah, and we talk about brand registry, and I mentioned this to you earlier, Manny. Like, I feel like a lot of people just kind of like, what is this brand registry? Like, this is stupid,
Right.
And
yeah.
they hear people talk about it, but they don't really know why they're doing it, and then they get a rejection back from Amazon, and they just throw their hands up in the air and they're just like, screw this, I'm not going to do this now. But brand registry is just another step in the whole deterrent game here, and strongly recommend it. It does give you more control over your listings. Particularly the content of your listings, which when you have control over that content, that's huge, especially if you do have a specific warranty or, you do want to reference your brand within your Amazon listing. And that's something else I suggest people do once they get control of their listing via Amazon brand registry is to, specifically state within their listing, purchases from unauthorized sellers will not have the benefit of our warranty or our guarantee. Also tell clients, say something within your listing like, be sure to look for this trademark or this particular aspect, this unique aspect of our branded packaging. Just those little things in the listing are going to, I think, help in deterring a counterfeiter. It's not, of course, you're going to have really egregious ones, and you're going to have them hopping on and off there, like the ones that you've talked about, Manny. But,
right. That's important because if somebody does hijack your listing, or actually, if you have all that information in there and then someone hijacks your listing, because you have that brand registry already set up, they can't go in and edit those things out. So they can be shipping stuff to people, but they know that if the person read the content on the page and it's not on there, they might complain to Amazon. They might want a refund, and it also helps you, of course, to get them removed.
Exactly. Like what you want to do is just work hard on branding your own product, building up that brand. As number one, a deterrent, and number two, to make a stronger case if you do end up having to report them as a counterfeit.
Okay, so brand registry for sure. And then jumping back, you need a trademark in order to the brand registry, or what's the process there?
No, you don't need to have a trademark you need to have a brand, but you don't have to have like a pending or registered trademark. I wouldn't doubt at some point if Amazon changes this and gets even stricter in what it requires for their brand registry, because right now, like, I feel like the requirements for brand registry are so just very lenient. You know, they don't necessarily ask for any proof of ownership of a brand. So I think that's something that maybe they'll be going to at some point. I don't know that for sure.
What would a new user need right now to actually get brand registry and lock that in? What do you got to do?
Okay, so to get your brand registry, obviously you need to have your brand, your trademark. You don't have to have a logo. You can just have your word mark. You'll need to have it on your packaging and your product. I've had situations where my client has been rejected for brand registry because it wasn't actually on the product. And so this is something we're kind of wrestling with, because in some situations it's impossible to have a brand actually, or a logo or a trademark actually on a product. So just try to put it on the product if all possible. Another thing is you do need to have an e-commerce website set up for this. You can get one for fairly cheap. You can do Shopify. I don't know what your cheapest rate would be with Shopify, maybe $15 a month. I don't really remember, but I think you can get a Wix website too. You want to clearly show your brand in relation to the product on that website. And I also suggest people show their UPCs on there in association with the brand. And then all that should be submitted to Amazon. Basically they review it and they'll approve it. Does
the website have to link back to Amazon, the product pages?
No. As far as I know, they don't have to.
Okay, great. So they do that, and then how long is the process to have it all go through?
Brand registry, as far as I know, can take like 24 to 48 hours. Like it is not like a complex, filing or anything like that. So, and as far as I know, they're not checking actual USPTO registrations. One thing I do want to mention, I mentioned that UPC code a second ago. I know that there's been a lot of talk about GS1. I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear me say this, but I think it's going to become more and more imperative to buy those UPCs directly from GS1 and not a reseller, because there are portions of the UPC that are attributable to the company. So this is one of those things that I think will help you as a brand owner as well, is to actually, use a UPC that's been generated by GS1 and not from a reseller, and definitely not on eBay. Like you're not getting good UPCs if you buy like 1,000 of them for $1 on eBay.
But they're such good value. 1,000 for $1. You're absolutely right though, because I ended up buying, when I first started, I bought a ton of UPCs. I didn't go to the cheapest place. I went to what I thought was a reputable source, and I actually saw this on, I think it was probably another Facebook group, and it was funny because not too long ago I actually ran some of the UPCs through GS1's database or search, and sure enough, it was registered to another company. So they just resell these things over and over and over. And by the way, guys, I posted that link if you want that, because it's a weird link. I couldn't recite it here, but it's on our Facebook group. So if you guys want to check your UPCs, you can definitely go there. We might have it in the show notes as well.
I think it'd be a really good idea for anyone to go at least check a few of their UPCs. But I also, when I started private labeling last year, I bought from what I thought was a reputable company. It was actually Nationwide Barcode. It seemed reputable. I mean, I'm like, hey, it's better than eBay, right? It's not like, I thought, you kind of go in the middle of the road and you think you're going to be kind of safe. But if I was starting all over with another product, I would purchase from GS1. And I think what people find that a little bit off-putting is that there is like a fee for that, like a renewal fee for that, or like a subscription fee for that. So like you have to pay like a membership to have like your UPC codes through GS1. And I think people find that really off-putting.
Yeah, that's kind of a pain, right? Because you're like, man, every year now I've got to pay for this this fee for this UPC, where the other stuff you buy, like you said, 1,000 UPCs for like $5 and you're done. but they don't really technically belong to you. So, take it for what it's worth. But yeah, I always look at it this way. If you're buying a GS1 UPC and you do have a yearly fee, it's just the price of doing business, right? Hopefully you're making a lot of money with your product, and the fee that you have to pay once a year isn't really that big of a deal, I would say.
Right. Yeah. It's the cost of doing business. Like you said, I mean, this is just, if you want to be a legitimate seller, and if you're moving from hobby to business, like this is your company, like, do it right.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, Susie, I don't actually know. I was told by somebody that with GS1 originally, I guess maybe some years back, you would buy something and you would get like the first X number of digits, and then after that you could just add whatever digits you wanted. It was always registered to your company. Do you know if they still do that? And it was a way to bring down your fees.
I have not heard that. Now, I have heard that like the first 5 digits are attributable to your business entity, but I didn't know that about the remaining digits. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but it kind of makes sense, though. I don't know. It would definitely be worth looking into.
Yeah, for sure. And people have been posting on our Facebook group saying that, Amazon has come after them, or they're going after friends. They're saying, hey, they're looking up our UPC saying it doesn't belong to us, and they're blocking their listing. So it might not have hit you yet, but as they move through all the listings, and according to what somebody just recently posted, one of the support people there said that they will eventually get through all of them. They're just there's millions and millions and millions of them. Yeah. So they're manually checking, and you might get affected, and it'd be terrible, right? If you're generating thousands of dollars per week on a product or per day, whatever the case might be, and then suddenly, boom, it's gone, and you've got to go through and relist the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just starting down this road, please just do it the right way. Don't try to save a penny. Just just a little bit of money to, kind of have that headache lingering over you, or losing sleep, that kind of thing. It's just better to do it right if you can. So yeah, GS1.
Perfect. So you get your barcode. You're putting everything on the packaging. We're doing everything that you mentioned. So now, hopefully, you've got your brand registry, your trademark filed. But this doesn't keep somebody from still hijacking your account, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, you're hoping that this will be a good deterrent. But you're still going to have, unfortunately, I would say 70% of the hijackers that I've dealt with are Chinese-based. And, the problem is that Western countries really appreciate and value brands. We love our luxury brands, and it's just something, we love our McDonald's, you know what I mean? Like we appreciate that. And, I don't feel like they do as much, in Asia. And that's why there's such a counterfeit issue. And that's why so many of the issues are coming from China. I would say if I have to send a notice to, a Chinese or American-based hijacker, I would say I'm successful in just getting them off probably 50% of the time. They'll just go away. And I don't know if it's that I actually scared them, or I'd like to think that, but, they'll just go away. And then I always give them 24 to 48 hours, which is 48 hours is probably too generous. But I do always give them some time to actually open up the email and check it and remove themselves from the listing. And I do tell them, I reiterate what Amazon's terms are, or what their policy is with respect to not having, or with respect to listings being identical. Like if you jump on a listing, your product better be identical. And I also mentioned what the repercussions are. For violating that particular term. So usually they do go away, but not always. And I do have to report to Amazon. And if you do have to report to Amazon, you want to do it on your own. Like I said, it's very important to highlight this is a counterfeit issue. And don't go into a bunch of stuff about it being unauthorized. They want to see that it's a counterfeit situation. And like I said, you really want to, show how your product is different than what that counterfeit is.
Right. And that means Amazon is going to require you at that point to place an order of that product and show them how it's different, right? Or have you seen different ways of doing this?
There are different ways of doing this.
Oh, great. I want to hear them then. Because the typical process for the longest time has been, send some kind of a cease and desist letter. Maybe wait a day before you order, or a lot of times just place the order right away and get the process going. And then you have to prove to Amazon that, hey, this product that they sent is not what is actually my product. So what are the other ways of doing it?
Well, what I do, I will sometimes get that response back to you that's like, okay, we need your your order number, sorry. Yeah, your order number, and we need to see the test buy information, whatever. So I'll typically respond and say, hey, this is a counterfeit issue. I do not believe that a test buy is necessary and that my client is suffering damages. And your customers are going to be not happy about this. And my success rate in getting counterfeiters off of Amazon thus far has been really good. And I have not sent them a single test buy.
Wow.
So,
do you think it helps from the fact that when you're contacting them, it's coming from an attorney versus, just regular Joe Lister type guy,
Joe Lister. Isn't there a company in there, Joe Lister?
Yeah, I know I said the wrong thing. It should have been Joe Smith, but yeah, there is an eBay company called Joe Lister. So
I did a little advertisement for Joe Lister.
I know, yeah. So hey, if you want to sell your products on eBay, check out Joe Lister.
Joe Lister, everyone. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say that. I mean, yeah, they might sit up a little faster when it's coming from a lawyer. I don't send things typically. Now, I have sent things in Amazon when I really felt like I need to get someone's attention on actual paper. Can you believe it? I've actually sent things in Amazon on actual paper. But, I think it helps. I do think it helps because they know that someone has paid an attorney to prepare that. And so it's, an attorney is not going to, I hope, an attorney will not shoot off a letter without doing some, amount of due diligence. You know what I mean? I'm not going to send off a letter unless I know that my client is facing a counterfeit situation.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that it helps in that respect. So it might, and of course you can try to send it yourself, and I have had situations where my clients have tried to send them before and they didn't get any response. And then I did, and I signed it, attorney for, so-and-so, and I've gotten them removed in about 6 hours. Again, I don't know. I don't know if it is attributable to that, but it could be. So. And
when you get them removed, do you find that the seller themselves have been completely removed, or is it just off that listing, or is the product completely gone? What are your takes on that?
Yeah, so my experience has been they're usually just off the listing. I will take a look around about a week later, like after I, just to make sure that they're still off the listing, the client hasn't missed it. And just out of curiosity, I always like to see if that seller is still on there. Or the seller is still selling on Amazon, but, of course, not on my client's listing. I do like to kind of play around and see if they're still out there. And I've had situations where they're completely gone. And I've had situations where they're still out there hopping on listings. Unfortunately, not my clients, but you can still, find their seller name on there. So
it's crazy to me that you have people that get their accounts, completely killed by Amazon because they do, let's say, a fake review or something. But then when you find a company that's got straight up counterfeits and you've gotten them removed because of that reason and they're still able to sell, it just boggles my mind.
It blows my mind too. Now I have heard, I'm in the process of reading Cynthia Stein's book, Suspension Prevention, because I just wanted to kind of, I don't know if you've read that book, but she does a lot of reinstatement work. And so I'm reading it, and she talked about how sort of the, if there's 3 reports of counterfeit against your listing within a short amount of time, that is going to, be a really bad strike against you versus like 2 reports over 6 months. So they look at velocity of reports. So kind of think about that whenever you come across if you come across a counterfeiter on your listing, you might want to think about how could I maybe get some friends to help me out here? With,
the devious one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a counterfeit situation. Now, like I said, are they going to completely remove the list, the seller? I don't know. I really have no idea. I don't know what their metrics are internally for that.
And I've noticed also that I have certain products, for whatever reason, they are primed for the plucking, I guess you would say, for a hijacker. I have all the protections in place, but I know that they could jump on to this product, but they don't, or maybe they try, and I actually have seen them try, but they never get the buy box, even when their pricing is lower. But what happens, and this has happened to me big time, is I've run out of stock, and of course, as soon as you run out of stock, boom, they get the buy box, and it kills me because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've had them lined up actually. To where you have 2 or 3 different guys on there selling this product now, and it's a counterfeit, and you know that there's the reviews that are going to come in off of those by the time you stop it are going to affect your listing.
Yeah.
So try not to run out of stock, because that also opens you up. And they're scanning for that. There are tools that they can use to actually find products that are out of stock and jump on things.
I'm sure, yeah. These people are getting very creative, and they're using some some high-tech stuff to do it. So, and the thing is, too, it's sort of like playing whack-a-mole with them. You'll get rid of one, another one will pop up, and then you get rid of one. See, I've gotten rid of one before, and my client called me. She was so happy. And we were both so happy. It was like a Friday night. And the next day, they were back on the listing. We were both, I was just so livid. I was like, it ruined my weekend.
Yeah.
We'd been basking, And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm reporting them to Amazon. Like, this is ridiculous. So I immediately reported it to Amazon, and they were gone. So, actually, they are a Chinese seller that I have recently looked up on Amazon and couldn't find them anywhere. So I'm hoping, that account is gone. But with that said, a lot of times when a particular seller goes away, they probably just have ways of opening up a new seller account. So
right, yeah. I imagine that's probably all automated at this point. So they just have tons and tons of accounts.
Yeah. So one thing I'm really working with my clients at this point is trying to set up kind of restrictions around the entire brand on Amazon so that third parties can't list against them, kind of similar to what, Nikon or Samsung would do. So that's kind of, I feel like, the next step that a lot of brands should be considering. And, I know that a lot of people think, oh, this is just for the big brand, this is just for like Disney brands and Samsungs and all that, but I think that Amazon will start working with us about getting some restrictions set up around brands so that hijackers aren't constantly jumping on them. And I think that they know that they have to do this because otherwise they're just going to be constantly fielding takedown requests.
And that's probably where the regulation changes are going to come from, is as these bigger companies start pulling out of Amazon. I actually read this is happening already because they're getting knockoffs. A lot of the vendors for high-end, I guess, fashion wear and stuff like that. Yeah. They're pulling their products. And so Amazon is going to have to do something soon, or it's going to become another eBay, right?
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't become another eBay. But you probably are referencing the Birkenstocks that, I just read that they had pulled off of Amazon. And I'm really surprised that they were dealing with such a counterfeit issue there. Kind of seems like that'd be a hard thing to knock off, but I guess it's possible. I mean, they knock off all kinds of luxury purses and shoes and all kinds of clothes. So I guess Birkenstocks isn't really any different. So, but yeah, I think Amazon will start hopefully just cracking down on this because, like you said, if they don't, it's just gonna become another eBay, and they don't want that. Of course, Amazon is very customer centric. They're not as concerned about the seller. And that's another thing, I kind of want to mention is that if you're having an issue with another seller, Amazon is not going to get in between that. That is your problem with the other seller. If you need a lawyer up, but they're not going to adjudicate between two different sellers. They are going to make sure that their customers have the best experience. And I think that's one reason it's really good to, if you are reporting counterfeits, one of the first things you point out is how these customers are going to have a bad experience when they get this junk from China, and not your product that has some kind of value add to it, and that you branded. So I think think Amazon needs to start working on taking care of their sellers a little more.
Yeah, it gets crazy.
Hopefully I can say this, but I have like a list of a lot of the things that we talked about, but just sort of a checklist of it's a strategy checklist basically to help people build up their brand listings on Amazon. And of course, file your trademark, submit to Amazon's brand registry program. And then I have some tips in there about like what you can do to your listing to sort of distinguish it and, hopefully deter hijackers from hopping on there. So if anyone wants that checklist, I'd be happy to send it to them. So you just need to email me.
Where do they go to email you?
It's just Suzi, Suzi, at theprivatelabellawyer.com, or you can go to my website, www.theprivatelabellawyer.com, and there's a about me, and you can click up there and schedule an appointment with me, or just reach out to me via my platform or on Facebook. I'm also on Facebook.
Cool.
I try not to hide too much, so I'd say most people can find me.
Yeah, no, this is awesome stuff. So I want to go back a little bit. I know we've been going for a little while here, but when you are contacting Amazon to get them removed, okay, because of counterfeiting, are you going through a specific place through Amazon to do this, to get to the counterfeit department, or what is the process there? Because people, I'm sure, are wondering. I've talked to people over at Seller Support, and I get nowhere. They just say, "Oh, you've got to order, you got to do this." What's the process?
Okay, there is a specific site that I go to. Can I just try to find it here? How can I share it with people? Yeah. And my contact at Amazon has specifically said, when you do your initial reporting, just go there. She's like, that's where you'll get your fastest reaction. Or response. Maybe I can just look it up and I'll shoot it over to you and you can share it.
Yeah, that's
fine.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. Well, we can share it both in it'll be either in the show notes or we'll put it over on our Facebook group, which, by the way, guys, if you are not a member of yet, head over to Amazon. I'm sorry, not Amazon. Head over to Facebook. Yeah, go to Facebook and then go to FBA High Rollers. Just type that in and you'll go there. Or you can go to our podcast at ampmpodcast.com, and we have a link to our Facebook group over on the right side.
Awesome. Okay. And I'll shoot that link over to you, Manny, so you can put it up. And like I said, this is what I've been told with my contact at Amazon. This is the best, this is kind of your portal, to report that. And like I said, if you are reporting on your own initially, make sure you you make it clear that it's a counterfeit issue and you completely lay out what the differences are in your product. And I also want to say I do think it is really important to try to reach out to the other seller before you do report to Amazon, because you do have situations where it is an innocent, and someone just has really no clue what they're doing. And this is people's livelihoods at this point, or it's becoming that way for a lot of people, or they want it to be. And so I think it's good to give them an opportunity to get off your listing before you report them.
Right. Okay, cool. And then if somebody doesn't want to do this, they don't know what, the whole process, or they're just intimidated. This is a service that you also provide. They can hire you to go out and do this for them?
Yep, I sure can.
Perfect.
Yeah, because it's one of those things that, some people just don't want to deal with. I always say people hire attorneys to take on their problems. You know what I mean? It's like outsourcing problems.
Yeah, it makes sense. So if they want a fee schedule for that, is it different depending on what's going on?
I do have a flat fee schedule for that, and it is on my website, theprivatelabellawyer.com. And if you go to the top, it says store, and you can see my flat rates for Amazon hijacker removal, and then I also have my flat rate for trademark filing. So it's all right there.
Okay, cool. So yeah, if anybody's interested, head over there. And is there a long wait period? Are you super busy, or do you get on this pretty fast?
I can get on it pretty fast. I am a little slow on weekends because, like I said, I've tried really hard. I've 2 nephews and a niece, and I really try hard to spend time with them on the weekends. But I'll work late for people. I've worked late during the week plenty of times to get these, because I understand that, in this situation, time is money. And I know that I've had clients that are I'm losing thousands of dollars to sell, you know what I mean, of sales. And so obviously the quicker that I can respond, hopefully that'll help save them money. So I do try to be extremely responsive to get them off. So, and like I said on my list, I say right here, sort of my store, you know, I've gotten hijackers off in about 6 hours, and typically 24 to 48 hours if I have to reach out to Amazon. If I can just get the hijacker, you know, off the listing, it can be done pretty quickly. And also that is one benefit of using an attorney, because, you know, they do see that you lawyered up, and that does scare people a lot more. Like, holy crap, you know, they have a lawyer, and so this isn't worth it. So they will bail, you know, quicker. But in the situation, you know, the situations where I actually have to reach out to Amazon, you know, and you have a hijacker that's just being, you know, a jerk, they're just not leaving. It does take, it can take longer, you know, just, you know how Amazon is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I think the value here is in the fact that you do not have to wait for that product to come in, because you've been able to do it without that. And I know that when I've done it, and pretty much everybody else I know that's gotten into this kind of an issue with a hijacker, they have to order that product, and then you've got to wait. And especially if it's coming from China, then you've got a longer wait, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's money being lost, because people might say, well, I don't want to pay that fee to, you know, to some attorney to have it removed. But if you're losing sales for 3-4 days, which is what it's going to take minimum, even if it's here in the U.S., and then way longer if it's overseas, it might be worth it.
Yeah, and I think I think it could be that, and I haven't really asked my contact at Amazon about this yet for clarification, but I do wonder if it is because it's a counterfeit notification coming from a law firm, you know, and Amazon knows internally that they can face consequences for having counterfeit items on their platform. There was a case several years ago where Tiffany sued eBay for having counterfeit goods. And so, you know, they know that there is an element of liability there if they're permitting that. So that could be part of the reason that they jump so fast in taking down the hijacker when it comes from an attorney. And like I said, though, I've had situations where I know the seller has just been forced off of our listing, and that they're still roaming around out there, just probably waiting for the next cease and desist letter. So
yeah, all right, great. So we've jumped back and forth on prevention versus actually handling the situation once you do get hijacked. Was there anything we skipped over? Anything you want to talk about?
When you're setting up your e-commerce site, I think it's really good to you know, of course, show your branding. You're going to have to do that for your brand, for Amazon's brand registry program. But another thing you might want to do on there is clearly state your warranty. I think that's a really good thing to just say, like, you know, this warranty only applies to purchases from authorized sellers. And of course, you do want to say that on your Amazon listing. And in that strategy list that I mentioned a minute ago that people can email me for, or actually you can get on my website for free. It's actually on my website free if you just click on there. There's a link to Clips, you know, the audio company. They have a really awesome page on their website all about their warranty and unauthorized sellers, and I think it's just a really good example for people to look at when they're setting up their own e-commerce site.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a smart idea to put that on there. So even if the manufacturer and the seller are the same names, let's say, right? A lot of people use the same thing. Yeah. It's okay to say the warranty is only through, how did you word it? Specific sellers or specific dealers?
Let's see how I worded this in my example. Only purchases from authorized sellers will be eligible for our warranty.
Okay, and you don't need to list who the authorized sellers are anywhere?
Well, I do suggest to list the authorized sellers, which would be you, nobody else. And if you want to, you could maybe consider listing unauthorized sellers, people who you've seen or companies that you've seen hop on your listing. Now, I would urge people to take a look at Amazon's terms of service before they do that, just to make sure. I have recommended this in the past, but I am not 100% sure that does not conflict with Amazon's terms of service. Of course, you're going to have to have brand registry at that point to be able to change your listing in that way. I think the worst that would happen would be you would get a slap in the hand, or your listing would be temporarily deactivated to get that changed. But I haven't had anyone have a problem with it.
All right, then. So,
And, your online store, your e-commerce site should definitely list authorized sellers and unauthorized sellers. And I'm pretty sure the Klipsch website does that. So, yeah, make sure you take a look at that. Like I said, it's a link in my, actually I could send it to you if you want me to also.
Yeah, that'd be great. And would you mention the authorized sellers on the Amazon page as well, or only on the product page, your website?
I would do it on the Amazon page.
Okay, so on both. Put it on both places. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
In that strategy list, I have a list of different companies. I'm not affiliated with any of them, but, are different kind of value add when it comes to your brand packaging. And just an example of, I think, how important packaging is. People underestimate it. And, it doesn't have to be complex. But if you think about Tiffany & Company, that blue box is like such an iconic package, and of course Tiffany's been around for a long time and they have, worked hard on their branding, but, that color blue is actually a trademark. So, when you start branding and you start going along this path of building out your private label business, you might want to really think about, what other elements of my branding could potentially be subject to trademark protection. It could go beyond just a word or a logo. I think a lot of people overlook that. And, if you have distinctive colors, like I said, the Tiffany blue, it's called like Robin Egg blue or Tiffany blue. That's a registered trademark. The red wax on a Maker's Mark bottle, that's a registered trademark. So just really think outside the box when it comes to your branding and what you can use for your company that's really distinctive to you.
Okay, and I do have one other thing I want to ask.
Sure.
If somebody is sourcing a product and you're not sure whether that product is even allowed here, let's say somebody else has that trademark, is there any protection or anything that you recommend to people? Have you run into this where, you have steps to prevent yourself from buying 2,000 units of something that you can't even sell once it gets here because you didn't do any research?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so I have had this situation. I had a client import a product that had an element on it that was subject to a color trademark. And I can't really say what it is because I just don't want to give too much information on it. But it's such an unusual, bizarre situation. I told her I would have never thought to have searched for this as a trademark, this color for this small element. And that other company, it's a fairly famous, I don't want to say it's famous, it's mildly famous, deactivated her listing. And now she has like 2,000 of these products just sitting in a warehouse, and she's based internationally. So, in those situations, you can't check, Of course, most situations, someone's not going to be importing something that's already trademarked. You're going to be doing it stateside, Now, you could be alluding a little bit to patent issues. And that in itself is sort of another beast. And I think that we're going to see more problems with this, with people importing things that have patents on them. And yeah, that can be a really scary thing. I mean, if you want to be not completely safe, but if you really want to cross your T's and dot your I's, I had to think about that for a second. It's getting late on the East Coast. Once you could hire a law firm to do like a patent clearance search for you. And those are not cheap. I mean, I'd say they probably start at $2,000. And so basically what they would do is they would look at this product that you're interested in importing, and then they would do patent search to see if it's, something else is already out there like that. So the reason it costs so much is when a law firm, does that clearance search and reports on that and advises on it and then says, yeah, we're pretty sure that you can probably import this and use it. They're assuming a lot of liability because typically if a patent lawsuit does result from an infringement there, it's going to be a high dollar situation. So, and then the law firm is going to be brought into it probably at some point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so the malpractice insurance for patent firms is pretty significant. So that's why they cost so much to do these searches. But yeah, just to let listeners know that if you are really concerned about that, when you're importing something that seems super unique or whatever, you can you can hire a patent firm to do like a clearance search for you.
Yeah, and you know what? Just a word of advice to the listeners: if you find that golden goose product, right? You're online, you're on Amazon, and you're like, man, I don't understand why a ton of people haven't jumped on this product because all the numbers look crazy. And there's hardly any competition. There's probably a reason, and that actually happened to me. Yeah. I'm like, why is nobody jumping on this product? It's so good. And then, sure enough, I had found one company that was making it, and I'm like, I'm going to crush it on this one. And then, sure enough, there was patents on it after I did a little bit more digging.
Aren't you glad you looked around? Yeah, you can, if you want to do some of your own kind of digging around, Google Patents is pretty decent. It's a pretty decent platform. I mean, you basically get on there and you put in keywords, and it is actually impressive how Google has kind of, I don't know, like they've just kind of aggregated all the patents, I guess, in the U.S. Pending. Oh, no, they're not pending, but I guess all registered. So, it may be pending. I don't know. I haven't looked at it in several years, but you can use Google Patents to do some of your own searching. And, it's kind of analogous to doing like what I call the trademark knockout search or that cursory search on your own. You could maybe do that with a product that you're interested in importing, and then you would, insert the keywords and, but it can be really complex, and just looking at the different claims on these patents and that kind of thing can just get so overwhelming. So, and you could just go down a rabbit hole, you know what I mean? And spend hours doing it.
Yeah, and I got lucky. I found it only because I did a search on the brand name. And I'm like, well, let me just do a patent search on this, and it happened to pop up.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you found that.
I'm going to ask again, any final things, because I think it's been fantastic.
Well, good. Well, I don't know if I talked about proactively monitoring trademarks, and this kind of goes hand in hand, I feel like, with the searching. Once a company chooses a brand that they, want to use for private label, it's also important to monitor that brand and police it. Because, let's say that you eventually do get your mark registered, you're going to want to enforce it if you do come across someone who's infringing it. And I always tell people, just getting the registration for a trademark is kind of just half the battle. You need to proactively monitor your mark, whether you do that yourself or you hire a third-party service to do that for you. But just keep in mind that just getting the registration it's great, but you still need to monitor your mark and enforce it when necessary. Okay,
and how do you monitor your trademark?
Well, people can do it manually for free, other than their time, and they can use the resources that I gave earlier, that NOAM and name check, and just calendar to check those like every month. They can check the USPTO website monthly. They can check Google. They could set up a Google alerts with their word mark. That kind of stuff kind of does get a little bit overwhelming after time. But I use a company called CompuMark or for my clients, and basically it's the same company that I do the searching with. You put your mark, you make your order, and then you tell them what your mark is, and they will monitor your trademark for you. And you can there are services for every budget, and it starts at about $300 annually, and that would be monitoring USPTO filings and publications. Now, if you want to spend more, you could also monitor common law uses that are out there. If you wanted to spend even more, you could monitor international uses that could pop up. So you can outsource that. Just like there's a software for everything. Like there's an app for that.
Right.
There's like a software for that. That will do it for you. So, and really, you got to think about, okay, well, I know that I could spend 2 or 3 hours a month doing this. But the cool thing about CompuMark is they'll just report to you whenever something pops up. And it's usually, I can usually get reports about once a week for my clients. Now, I have some clients that they just want the report sent directly to them, and I never look at it. I have some clients that want me to look at it and just kind of make sure everything looks okay, because usually it's not a conflict. Like usually something will pop up, and I'm like, that's not really an issue because the goods are so different, Or if it does look like it could be an issue, I always report it to the client, and then we discuss about whether or not a cease and desist letter is in order. And kind of backing up on that a little bit with a cease and desist letter, if you're going to send a cease and desist letter to someone, you better make sure that you're the first user of that trademark.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to send a cease and desist letter, and then you find out that the other company was actually the first user, because you're basically saying in that cease and desist letter that your marks, are confusingly similar. So,
yeah, you're digging your own grave at that point.
You are digging your own grave, yeah. So definitely do some due diligence on that before you send off a cease and desist letter, and that's why I think it really is good. To have an attorney look at it, because even if you do come across I never come across infringement issues. It's always my clients bringing them to me, or, CompuMark. I don't look myself. But we always do our due diligence. There's different levels of doing that, different ways to do that. But it's super important to make sure that you're the first user of a trademark before you do that, or before you send a cease and desist letter.
Okay. Yeah. Good stuff.
I guess we went on a little bit of a tangent there off of Amazon a little bit, but
no, it's all good. You know what? There's always something. A lot of people don't think they need specific information. Like, I don't need to deal with hijackers, or I don't need to worry about trademarks. And then something happens, and they're like, oh man, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have known that. They'll come back to it. So happens all the time.
Yeah. They'll come back to it when they have to.
Right. So a lot of people don't want to talk about legalese and all that kind of stuff, right? It's not the pretty side of it. They want to hear about sales and sourcing and making money.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunately it's something that it can save you a lot of money. So in that respect, it does make you money.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I feel like if you set up your listings just right on Amazon, doing it right from the outset, brand registry, trademark registration, those are your first two big steps. You're probably already ahead of like 75% of the sellers out there.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we've covered a ton. If we've missed anything, we'll be able to have you come back on the show, and I'm sure there's going to be questions. You're part of our Facebook group, so people can ask you questions there, but I'd definitely like to have you on when things have changed enough to where people are like, wait, we need to know about this, and this. Because I think you've covered just about everything here. This was awesome.
Well, I think it's a constantly evolving thing, and I learn something new all the time, and the space like it is right now is not going to be the same in 2 months. This fall, something is going to be different, and I just think it's really important to just really try to stay on top of it. You just have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So once more, for those that might have just kind of jumped around on this podcast, if they want to contact you or get some more information, what's the website?
It's www.theprivatelabellawyer.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Susie. Suzi Hixon, she can save you a lot of headaches if you don't want to deal with all the nasty stuff out there related to intellectual law, private label madness with hijackers. Definitely reach out to her. She's just a wealth of knowledge, and a lot of people need this kind of service. So I'll definitely be reaching out to you, I'm sure.
Well, I hope you don't have any counterfeit problems, Manny, but I'll try to help you if you do.
Yeah, you know what? I've had tons of hijacker issues, and I've been lucky to some extent. Some of them have been brutal and just kind of fought me and like, do what you got to do. You'll never get me off your listing, kind of a thing. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but yeah, if there's anything really bad, I'll be in touch.
I will drop the hammer on them.
Drop the hammer, crush them. So, all right, Susie, appreciate you coming on our podcast. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
You too, Manny. You have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
You've been listening to the AM/PM podcast hosted by Manny Coates. For more information, insider tools, and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit ampmpodcast.com.